Hello, everybody. My name is Emily Burns, and I'm the Director of Education and Impact at the Ontario Library Association. I'm really excited to welcome you to the call for proposals for the 2026 OLA Super Conference. Our theme for this year is We Persist. It feels very appropriate, and we are really excited to have you with us, sending in your submissions. We can't wait to read through them. So I'm going to walk you through how to submit your session. If you went through the process last year, this will look very familiar to you, but if you're new to it or if you want a refresher, you've come to the right place. So you're going to start with the call for proposals link. It looks a lot like this. So there is the option to register your new account. Now, this is something that you're going to do even if you submitted through last year. This is a brand new portal. Once you do this process once, you'll just be able to click on the login button and it'll be nice and quick for you. All right, so I've added in my name, I've added in my email and my password, and I'm going to press the register button. So we have this landing page here. You can see I haven't submitted any abstracts yet because I just registered. So I'm going to submit my first one. I'm going to go up to the top right here and click on Add Abstract. So you'll see we have this little form at the top. It shows sort of where you are along the process. And so it is a 5-piece submission process. And you'll see that if you either take a look at this video or click through yourself, or take a look at our proposal submission guide, which we also have listed on the Super Conference website. All proposals go through this process. All proposals are reviewed by our Super Conference Planning Committee, and proposals will be accepted this year until Thursday, September 26th. No changes can be made after the proposal submission deadline. If your session is accepted, then changes can be made at that time. But once the proposal submission deadline is hit, that's when all of our planners get to really dig in and take a look at your session. So no changes will be made after the 26th. So once you've taken a look at this and read through, you can press continue. This is the first section where you really get to add in some information about you and who you are and your session. So just because you are the submitter and you've set yourself up into this portal doesn't mean that we think that you are going to be a presenter, because we do occasionally have some folks who are filling out this form on behalf of another group of people. So we want to make sure that everybody who's going to be presenting in this session proposal is represented in this authors section. So to add an author, you're going to press this plus add author button right here. And you're going to fill in some information. So whether this is about you or whether this is about a colleague. I'm just going to get some information added in here. If this person is already in the system, then they'll be attached already, which is great. Otherwise, it'll just note that they're adding a new person into the system. I'm going to press save and close. And so you can see that I'm listed here. You can add as many authors as you like. Obviously, you don't want to have so many authors that nobody really gets a chance to speak at your session. So something to take into consideration is, the length of your session versus how many speakers you have. But it is really beneficial to make sure that you have as many people listed here as you plan to have present at the Super Conference. So once you've finished adding your authors, you can press continue. And this is where we really get into the meat of what you're proposing. So this session title section right here is where you add your title. We do recommend that you keep this to 15 words or less. They shouldn't be unnecessarily long. Try to avoid jargon. Try to avoid the name of your library system. Try to keep it engaging. Same with your session description. So this is a maximum of 150 words. You're going to put this in here. We have some, information listed here about how you should plan your session description, how you should really get that tightened up. And then we have our section on learning objectives. So your learning objectives should tell your audience in clear language how your session will affect their behaviors, skills, knowledge, or attitudes. We do request that every session has at least 2 learning objectives listed here. We have space for a third if you want to have a third as well. Scrolling down, we have the primary content area. Please select between 1 and 3 of these primary content areas. If you start to select more than that, it becomes difficult for the planning committee to really understand what it is that you're narrowing in on. So it's not a more is more, it's a less is more kind of situation here. Same with your target audience. Please select a maximum of 3 under the target audience here. And if you really feel that you have a more general audience, we have that option right here. So you can just click on general audience. For your session type, you're going to let us know, and it'll get a bit more granular a bit further on in the process, whether you are submitting an in-person session, an in-person poster, or a virtual pre-recorded presentation. Now, you'll notice these are not mutually exclusive. Maybe you want to submit this topic and include and basically say, I'd love to do it as an in-person session. You'll see this will open down here, but I'd also love to do it as a virtual pre-recorded presentation if that other in-person session doesn't work out. That's completely fine. You can do that. So you can indicate both. So I'm going to go back up here and make sure that I've written something. All right. Okay, so as we take a look for our in-person sessions, you're going to take a look at the format that your session will take. So we have shop talks. These are typically smaller sessions. They're bite-sized and practical. We have conversations, which are peer-to-peer conversations on a topic that's important and timely and led by 1 or 2 facilitators. We have a learning lab, which is a standard conference session that includes active instruction with the goal of the audience understanding a specific method, approach, or opportunity. We have a poster presentation, which demonstrates a tangible activity or a project or a concept. And we also have pre-conference workshop, which is an in-depth and interactive workshop led by content experts, and it takes place on Wednesday only. So you're going to decide what works best for me. What is what I really want to do? Do I want to have a conversation? Do I want to do more of a more typical structured presentation? For me, I'm going to select a learning lab. And then here we have in-person length. So you want to select the preferred length of your session, and this includes the time for Q&A. The typical format and length alignment can be found beside the time. So if you want 15 minutes, you're probably looking at a shop talk. If you want 45 minutes, sometimes a conversation can take place over 45 minutes. Sometimes a learning lab can take place over 45 minutes if it's a little bit smaller in terms of the content. 60 to 75 minutes is suitable for learning labs and some conversations that require additional time. Maybe you're planning a conversation that's really meaty and you want to have a bit more time for it. Or if you're planning a pre-conference workshop for the Wednesday, if you're submitting that between 2 and 4 hours, then you would select that. The next session here is in-person interactivity. Please indicate your session's level of anticipated interactivity. So the first one is minimal. Participants are primarily listening and observing. Examples include presentations or lectures, primarily delivered from a podium with minimal audience engagement beyond a Q&A at the end. Moderate involves some audience participation, but it's still controlled or structured. And examples include question and answer sessions with polls conducted during a presentation, short interactive activities, that kind of thing. High would be participants actively participating in the learning process. So a lot of group discussion, a lot of collaborative or hands-on problem-solving activities or role-playing exercises. And then not applicable, you can select this option if you're submitting a pre-recorded presentation or a poster session. So I'm going to say mine will be moderate. In-person availability to virtual audience. Some sessions may be live streamed. Are you open to your session also being made available to a live virtual audience? So you get to decide yes or no. What's your comfort level? That lets us know in advance. The next piece here for in-person is for in-person room setup. If your proposal is selected, you'll be in a physical room. Your room will either be set up in theater seating, which is no tables, or with round tables. Maybe you have no preference, so you can say no preference. You can click all of those. So that's completely okay. I think for my session, I would like theater seating, so I'm going to leave it at that. And then we have an open box here for in-person accommodations. So if you have any accommodations that you're aware of at the time of submission, please do add that information in here. Obviously, our need for accommodations change and flex, and that's always something that you can let us know right up until the conference, right on site. That's completely okay. But if you know something now, then please do let us know so that we can plan for that in our room allotment. And then I had also indicated I was interested in a virtual session. So for that, it's just right here a little spot for you to confirm. If you are going to be submitting a pre-recorded virtual session, you confirm to us that yes, you are prepared to pre-record your session before December 5th. This gives OLA staff the time to review the sessions, to make any edits that are necessary, to get everything up onto the website. We don't go through and edit your content or anything. It's just, making sure that everything is ready to head onto the Super Conference website. So I've taken a look. I think my session looks great. I'm going to press continue. And then we have arrived, we're getting close to the end here. So there is a section here that explains this new element of the call for proposals this year. So this is the submission to the OLA Super Conference Indigenous Stream. The Indigenous Stream has existed for years at the OLA Super Conference. It is stewarded by one or two Indigenous Stream planners. We have two this year, and it focuses on ensuring that authentic Indigenous voices and perspectives are prioritized in the conference programming, ensuring that content related to Indigenous matters are being delivered appropriately, prioritizing topics beneficial to Indigenous attendees, and in some cases, educating on Indigenous matters. So for this particular stream, the Indigenous Advisory Council has gone through the process this year of making really clear what the stream is for and what it's not, and who it's for and who it's not. And so what is required of this stream, which is a bit different from the Super Conference outside of this stream, is that to ensure authentic Indigenous voices are being represented in the program, the Indigenous stream planners and in some cases the Indigenous Advisory Council will be provided access to the identifying information that submitters provide in the call for proposals form. And so anybody can submit to the Indigenous stream. However, Indigenous library workers from all settings will be prioritized for placement. So at this spot at the bottom here, you need to let us know, are you submitting your session for consideration in the Indigenous stream? And if you are, then you can select yes. And you have a couple of questions to answer on the next page. If you select no, then everything on the next page is not mandatory. You get to decide how much of it you fill in. So I am not submitting to the Indigenous stream, but you'll get to see the questions on the next page, which are open to everybody. We're going to press continue. And now we're on our self-identification section. So OLA is committed to diversity, equity, justice, and inclusion, encouraging and pursuing own voice presenters who bring vibrant and new perspectives to the OLA Super Conference, and we will prioritize presenters with lived experience. So these first two questions right here are required for anybody who is submitting to the Indigenous stream. So anybody who pressed yes in that previous screen. You don't have to have a particular answer to these two questions, but they are required in order to be considered for the Indigenous stream. So the first question is, do any presenters in this session identify as First Nation, Inuit, or Red River Métis? Please note that this question is open to all presenters, but is required for consideration in the Indigenous stream. If you select yes, there will be a little breakout here that lets you indicate your nation or tribe. And if you press no, that doesn't appear. And then the second question is, do any presenters work on reserve or at a First Nation public library? Please note that this question is open to all presenters, but is required for consideration in the Indigenous stream. And this is a yes or no drop down. Okay. So one thing that's really important to remember is that these two questions are completely optional. But if you want to be considered in the Indigenous stream, these two questions are mandatory. Okay. The last two questions in this section are, does this session address a topic that's specific to an equity deserving community? This could include, but is not limited to, Indigenous, Black, racialized, 2S LGBTQIA+ communities, and disabled communities and groups. If so, please indicate your relationship to this community, and you have the option to indicate where you are and your positionality with respect to the community that you may be speaking about in your session. And then there is a space down here at the bottom where folks are able to indicate your own personal information if you identify as belonging to any of these groups. And this is information that you are under no obligation to share, but that can be very helpful for ensuring that we have equitable representation in the conference program. Okay, so once you are finished with this page, you're going to press continue. And we've arrived at the end. So you can take a look, you can review everything that's listed here. My session, test riveting. This is the pinnacle of academic achievement. So you can take a look at all of the things that you have submitted, and then you can press submit. Now, once this has happened, it'll let you know abstract submitted successfully. If you want to make any adjustments before the 26th of September, then you can go to this little pencil right here and it'll open it up for you again so you can go in and change anything you like. If you decide that you do not want to move forward or that you want to completely delete your submission and maybe redo one, whatever you like, you can press the little trash button. It will ask you if you want to do this. So it won't be an accident for you. You'll have the opportunity to be like, oh, cancel. And then this little eye icon is where you can go and review everything that you had included. And you will notice there are some little bits of code here, but we are aware that that's not something that you put in. So don't you worry about that. So that is the overview. You can also download this as a PDF if you're interested. Okay, so this is an overview of the call for proposals. Thank you so much for watching, and we really look forward to reading through your submissions in October. Thanks so much.